Okay, let's get this started. I used to feel this overwhelming sense of hopelessness when it came to becoming confident. Like no matter what advice I tried, I was still constantly overthinking, second guessing, and never feeling like enough. If you're hearing this and thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds just like me, it's because similar to me, you've been chasing the wrong version of confidence your entire life. So in this video, I'll show you what's really blocking your confidence and the framework that I developed that helped me and hundreds of other people overcome social anxiety and become truly confident. One of the main reasons you struggle with confidence is because you misunderstand what real confidence actually is and where it comes from. I know this because I used to be the same exact way. Growing up, I used to be an extremely shy child, and I didn't get out that much. And when I did, I was the quiet kid, and because I genuinely didn't know what to say. All my anxiety would take over. So instead of actually interacting with the kids, I just sat back and observed. And what I observed was that the loud and expressive kids, everyone followed, and they had all the friends. And I remember thinking to myself, if I want people to like me, I have to be like them. So that's what I tried to do. I forced myself, despite all the anxiety, to be louder, expressive. And I tried to make my personality shine in a way that would get attention. And when people praised me and they acknowledged me, it felt good. So I started chasing that feeling. I thought that's what confidence was. But no matter how much validation I got, I always had this empty feeling the second it went away. And on top of that, I would still feel severe anxiety when I got into one-on-one conversations. I would still overthink and I would still be anxious. And for years, I didn't understand why. I didn't realize at that time, but what I thought confidence was came from praise and validation because that's all I had ever experienced. I was completely blind to the truth of the matter. One of the reasons why you feel like confidence isn't possible is because you've been chasing the wrong version of confidence your entire life. As J. Cole said, the good news is you came a long way, but the bad news is you went the wrong way. What you've been chasing is known as external confidence when you should be looking for internal confidence. But what's the difference? There are two different types of confidence, external and internal. Most people chase external confidence. External confidence is where you feel confident when you're getting validation, praise, or you have certain level of status, or you're doing better than somebody else. You typically feel good when people compliment you, when you're outperforming other people, or when you're winning. This is when you feel all your confidence when you're getting recognized. But the second the spotlight disappears, the second you're alone, your confidence falls apart and you're living on borrowed time. It's like building a house on sand. The second you push it in some type of way, it falls apart. Internal confidence, on the other hand, is completely different. It's rooted in belief. It's when you know who you are on the inside and nothing externally can shake you. It's being able to trust yourself to handle challenges, and it's steady when things go wrong. Internal confidence is where you know who you are, or your flaws, or your good points, and it grows when you learn to prove things to yourself. You don't need the outside world to remind you who you are on the inside. Internal confidence shines the brightest when you're able to go out and be in any type of situation, any type of challenge, and you're not waved or thrown back and forth just because somebody else isn't giving you that sort of attention. You're able to continue to push forward and be you. And that's where most of the most confident leaders you may know come from. They are so sure of themselves. They know exactly who they are, what it is they want, where they don't need to be thrown away to the side. And when you have this internal confidence, you're able to go out and do so much more in this world because you don't need people to tell you that you're doing good. You just have that internal drive and motivation to go out and get it for yourself. And you can end up changing your entire life the second you obtain it. But how exactly do you gain internal confidence? Luffy, Goku, and Naruto are all characters that people typically associate with being confident. They walk into almost any situation without hesitation. They don't shrink and they don't pretend to be someone else just to fit in. Part of the reason they seem so confident isn't just because they're strong, but it's because they're unapologetically themselves. Real confidence, and I mean real confidence, comes from authenticity. It's learning to show up for who you are despite any flaws. It's having the courage to be vulnerable rather than constantly chasing the approval of others. Real confidence is uncovering who you are and having the courage to express it. But here's the problem. It's really hard to be authentic when you don't like what's underneath. Part of the reason it's hard to be authentic is because deep down, you may not fully believe in yourself, or you may not even like yourself. And maybe you're afraid that if people saw the real you, that they wouldn't accept you. Maybe you're awkward. Maybe you feel like you're not enough or feel behind. And if that's the belief you carry, of course you're gonna try to hide and think that external factors are gonna make you confident. You will never act above what you believe about yourself. So you'll need to get to the root of your beliefs and rewire your beliefs from the inside out. So I will now show you how to rewire your beliefs so you can gain the confidence that you truly desire. Deku at the start of My Hero and Deku at the end of My Hero are two very different people. At the beginning, Deku was a kid who had heart, but believed deep down that he wasn't enough. And that belief affected every aspect of his life and how he moved through the world. However, by the end of the series, he carried himself with a completely different posture and presence. But why was he able to do that? And what in the world does that have to do with you? Part of the reason Deku is so different is because his fundamental belief about himself changed. Everything you do in life is a direct result of what you believe about yourself. It directly affects how you see the world around you, how you think, how you feel, and how you act. It affects how you move throughout your life. It all works in a cycle known as the belief wheel. It all starts at the top. If you don't believe yourself in your own capabilities, everything else becomes skewed. So you have to start with identifying what it is that you believe about yourself at your core in order to start to unravel it. In order to do this, you need to do the downward arrow technique. And you do this by following these 3 to 4 steps. The first step is to identify the surface level thoughts. So let's say you go into a situation. Let's say I'm talking to a few of my coworkers and I mention something about Dragon Ball. And I feel like I get, weird looks. I think to myself, man, I shouldn't have said that. They probably think that I'm weird. So, boom, that's me catching that surface level thoughts. The second thing that we need to do is identify the rule that we place upon ourselves. Typically, whenever we do something bad or we perceive as wrong, we'll place a subconscious rule on ourselves to prevent ourselves from making that mistake again. It's a perfect example. The rule that I set myself in this situation is that I should avoid them. I'm only gonna make them feel awkward. Okay, boom. You figured out that surface level thought, and now you figured out what you do because you thought this. So what you gotta do is dig deeper. One of the 2 questions that I like to ask is that I'll ask, what does this mean about me? And why do I think this is wrong? When you ask these 2 questions, you're able to dig a bit deeper and figure out, okay, what is it? Like, this doesn't just come out of nowhere. So if I think I make people feel awkward, I may say to myself, like, okay, I make people feel awkward because maybe I'm awkward, or maybe because I'm not likable, maybe because my interests aren't likable. All these things is what's gonna unveil your inner belief. This may sound like I'm not enough, I'm awkward, People don't like me. I don't measure up. These beliefs shape everything, and once you identify that, you can see what you see in the world. What you believe about yourself affects not only how you view yourself, but how you view the world around you. It affects your perception of life. If you already carry a negative belief about yourself, it's going to naturally affect how you see the world. Think of it like wearing a bad pair of glasses. Everything you look at is slightly distorted, and that belief starts to fog up the lenses even more. And over time, you keep bumping into situations that only confirm what you believed about yourself. And the more that happens, the thicker the fog gets. And here's how it affects you. You're gonna look for proof for what you already believe. If you think you're awkward, you're gonna interpret natural reactions as somebody rejecting you. If someone looks at you weird, you'll assume that they don't like you. If you're in a conversation and it feels slightly off, you're gonna replay it in your head for hours and hours and hours and assume that all these things are things about you. Your perception is a direct result of what you believe about yourself, because we naturally believe that we're the center of our own world, right? So sometimes we may think that other people are looking at the same thing that we're looking at, but we have to remember that everybody has a completely different point of view than us, right? The things that we may see as bad or attack against us is completely different in somebody else's eyes. But because you believe that you're not good enough, or that the things that you like isn't good, you're not gonna be able to see that. You're not gonna be able to see the facts that it is good enough and that it's okay, but you're gonna assume that other people share that same internal belief as you. You can completely ruin your own confidence by believing the thoughts that you have. If you already don't believe in yourself and you're seeing the world in such a distorted view, your thoughts are naturally also gonna have that same distorted view. And these distortions are known as cognitive distortions, or known as negative thinking habits. And there are 7 negative thinking habits that you can fall into, but if you learn to catch them and identify them, you can stop yourself from falling deep into that negative spiral that's killing your confidence. The first distortion that you could fall into is known as discounting the positives. So think about the last time you did something that was worthy of praise. What did you say to yourself? Most likely you said, okay, oh, that was nothing, or anyone could have done that, or like this only happened because somebody else, didn't do this. You brush off all your wins and you ignore anything good that happens. And this is gonna send you into a spiral of constantly feeling defeated. And if you feel constantly defeated, you're not gonna be able to show up confidently. The second distortion that we can fall into is known as catastrophizing. Think about a time you wanted to do something, right? But before you did it, your mind imagined every worst case scenario. You assumed that it would go horribly wrong. Catastrophizing is assuming the worst will happen. And because you think the worst will happen, your body's gonna react like it's already true. And most of the time, the worst case scenario never does happen. And if you assume bad things are gonna happen, you're not gonna be able to show up confidently in any situation. The next one is all or nothing thinking, also known as black or white thinking. You either think you're perfect or you're a complete failure. There is absolutely no middle ground. You're gonna use phrases like, I always mess up, or I'll never be confident, or I'm completely bad at this. And this will leave you feeling hopeless. The fourth cognitive distortion is known as mind reading. This is where you go out and you assume you know what other people are thinking. This is kind of where a lot of your perception of life also gets into play. So remember when I mentioned that story of, you're having a conversation with somebody and you assume that if people are around you laughing, you know that they're laughing about you? That's exactly what that is. You have no real evidence that they're actually talking about you, but it's you projecting your own insecurities onto them to how they view you. The fourth one is emotional reasoning. You treat your feelings as facts. If you feel nervous, you believe you're not prepared. If you feel awkward, you assume that everyone sees you the same way. And the spiral starts with the feeling. And if you're leading with all your emotions, you're not gonna be able to think clearly and your confidence is gonna be shot. The next one is known as mental filtering. This is where one bad moment ruins your entire day. You ignore everything that goes well and you replay one small mistake over and over and over and over again. This is where you ignore the positives and only focus on the one thing that happened. And the last one is overgeneralization. This is where one bad interaction becomes the story that's always gonna repeat itself. So if you have one awkward moment with somebody, you assume that every time you're gonna interact with that person, it's always gonna be awkward. And whenever this happens, your brain's gonna look for reasons to confirm this. All these negative thinking habits is what's killing your confidence. But by simply identifying these patterns, you can help stop the endless spiral. And this is important if you catch yourself before you fall into these distortions, because you can stop reinforcing that same negative belief over and over again in your mind. And from our thoughts, this is where we enter into the next part of the cycle, which is your feelings. Your feelings are the driving factor that pushes a lot of how you act, how you move, and a very pivotal key point into what you end up believing about yourself. Think about it. In Dragon Ball Z, there's a character named Broly who has an immense amount of power inside of him. Broly's father, Paragus, tried to put this collar around him in order to control Broly's rage and emotions. However, when Broly did get upset, he was unable to control himself and it always overflowed and it was hard to control. Our emotions are the same way. If we feel an intense amount of emotion about whatever situation is going around us, we're more likely to lean more towards that emotion. Whenever you feel intense emotions, there's a part of your brain that literally shuts off, which is your prefrontal cortex. Whenever you feel an intense amount of emotions, something called your limbic system, the part of the brain that controls your emotions, your anxiety, all those things will start to activate, right? Because now you are feeling hypersensitive to whatever's going on around you. And when the prefrontal cortex part of your brain completely shuts off, which is your logic, you're gonna be leading with all your emotions. So think about it. If you're unable to regulate those emotions, you're more likely to act in accordance with them. So if your emotions are telling you, hey, these people hurt my feelings, I'm sad, you're less likely to be able to show up in the confident manner that you need to, right? Confidence is about being able to be calm and steady in your own ability. But if you can't think clearly, all your confidence is gonna go out the window. What you need to do is learn how to regulate your emotions. And you can do that in these 3 steps. The first thing you need to do is simply name the emotion. You will be surprised about the amount of stuff that you can, do and figure out once you figure out exactly how it is you feel and simply just naming it out loud, right? A lot of times people get upset and because their emotions are kind of all over the place or they have mixed feelings about an event, it's hard to be able to sift through it. But being able to step back and be like, hey, I feel upset or I am sad, right? Doing that alone helps you gain some control about the situation. But if you're having trouble doing that, sometimes what I genuinely like to do is pull up something called the feelings wheel, right? So the feelings wheel is a wheel where it helps you, name the emotion that you're feeling. So you're gonna start in the middle and then you're gonna kind of work your way outwards. So you'd be like, hey, I feel sad. Like, okay, how do I describe my sadness? Do I feel depressed? Do I feel triggered? Do I feel, whatever it is on the things, and you just kind of go outward, and then you figure out like, oh, okay, I'm sad and I feel triggered about this situation, whatever it is. But being able to name it alone can help you gain back control. And the second thing you need to do is actually regulate your emotions. You have to remember, your emotions are just energy in motion. right? You cannot bottle it up, and you have to allow it to pass. But one of the things you need to do is give it the space to pass. So one of the things whenever I'm feeling an intense emotion and I'm trying to show up confidently in whatever situation is that I would like to do these two techniques. The first technique is known as the box breathing method. This is where I'll breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and then rinse and repeat. Whenever we feel an intense emotion, it's a lot of times our body will go into fight or flight response, telling us that there's some sort of danger around us and we need to be hyper vigilant of it. But if you trick your brain and your body to prove that whatever's going around you is okay by breathing slowly, it's tricking it that like, oh, hey, like this is safe. Because if there was danger around, we'd be, but if you trick yourself, you can breathe in, breathe out, like, oh, okay, like this is a safe environment. And the next thing you can do is something called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. This technique is where you name 5 things that you can see around you, name 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and then 1 thing that you can taste. This is literally about bringing your body and your person back to the present, right? Whenever we're feeling emotional, it's our mind and our nervous system will be all over the place. But being able to bring everything back into one little moment is extremely helpful in allowing your body to regulate and be like, this is okay. And the third thing you need to do is learn to actually validate your emotions. Way too often, we make it a point to bottle up our emotions and not actually validate the fact that we're okay to feel them. We're human, right? But whenever we don't tell ourselves or remind ourselves that it's okay, we're only gonna get more upset at the fact that we feel all these emotions. So tell yourself like, hey, like this is okay that I feel this way. I'm only human. Especially whenever you're trying to show up confidently, especially when you're trying to go in any situation and show who you are in the inside. You have to learn to accept the fact that you're you, that you feel the way, that you have these thoughts. And when you do this, you can show up for who you are, but be regulated and be able to confidently take action as you need to. But now that you actually know how to regulate your emotions, the next thing that you really need to do is pay close attention to how you act. Remember, if you don't like yourself and you look for reasons to prove the fact that you're not likable, you're gonna think certain thoughts and you're gonna feel a certain way about those thoughts. And because your feeling is the direct driving force for all action in your life, it's gonna cause you to act in ways that don't really show your confidence, right? You're gonna walk around with your head low. You're gonna try to make yourself look smaller, because if you don't like yourself, why would the world like you? So what needs to happen is you need to start paying very close attention to how you show up in this life. Now that you understand how to regulate your emotions, the thing you need to do next is change how you've been acting. Because the only way to change your inner belief is by taking action. You're never going to prove to yourself that you're a likable person, that you can actually believe in yourself and be confident if you don't actually go out there and make a change in your life. You can't think your way into confidence. That's just not how it works. You have to supply yourself with evidence by going out there and putting yourself in positions to learn and get better at whatever it is you need to do. And so a thing you need to remember is something known as the confidence competency loop, which states that in order to gain confidence, you have to first take action, right? And as you take action at said thing, you build your competence, right? And then you learn something because you took action, and now you're more confident to be able to try that thing again. For example, the only way for me to get better at public speaking is by going out and do more public speaking, right? I can't sit here and be by myself in a room and just write out speeches all the time. That's not gonna make it to where I can actually go out on stage and talk to hundreds of people. You have to put in the reps day in and day out. You gotta remember that your confidence is just a willingness to try. So what you need to do is pick one small goal that you're trying to get better at. This could be trying to go talk to a group of people. You may have difficulty trying to do that at first, but it needs to be something somewhat challenging. So you slowly work your way up. But okay, so I'm gonna get used to talking to one person, right? Then two, and then eventually talk to three. Okay, all right, now we're making it somewhere. And you just go ahead and start building up on that. And eventually, whether or not you win or you fail, you're building confidence in the task that you're trying to get better at. And now, before you know it, it becomes easy for you to show up confidently in these situations. Now that you take an action, you're gonna get certain results from that action. So whether or not you win or you fail or whatever it is, you've learned something. But here's the key thing you have to do after you take action, right? You have to remind yourself that whether it turned out the way you wanted to or not, that you did it, that you made the effort to actually be confident, that you made the attempts to better yourself. Remember, like I said, confidence is just a willingness to try, right? The more you try, naturally, the more confident you're gonna become at whatever it is, right? Confidence feels impossible right now because you've convinced yourself and you fell through all these endless cycles, and at the end, once you've taken action on whatever it is, you use these results to fuel your own negativity, right? So if you go out and act not confident when you walk around with your shoulders low, you're gonna use that as proof that, oh man, I can't do this, right? But the fact that you tried, the fact that you went out and actually made the attempt to get better, that alone is what's necessary. But whether or not it turns out the way you wanted to, whether it's good, bad, different, doesn't matter. You made the attempt. So you remind yourself like, hey, I did this. I'm better as a result of whatever it is that I did. Moral of the story, you just need to remind yourself that you're doing a good job, because most of the time when you go out and you've made attempts in the past, you've used any evidence of you giving into your thoughts or giving into your emotions or believing the false perception you have in life. You've used that as evidence to prove that you're not confident, right? But if you remind yourself that, hey, I'm making the effort and I'm actually getting better, you will naturally learn to rewire that inner belief. Right? It all starts deep down on the inside, and you have to learn to validate yourself and your emotions and your actions. By rewriting your internal belief, your confidence will begin to skyrocket, and you won't even recognize yourself anymore after that. I offer personalized coaching that will transform you from the anxious version of yourself into the version that can handle any situation with real confidence. If you want to try it out, click the link in the bio below. And if you want a more in-depth insight into topics that I've covered, click the video on your screen now to learn even more ways to unlock your confidence.